Hiya, welcome to our parent craft classes, your antenatal lessons with the lovely Laura and the amazing Amy and me, Heather. Today we are going to be covering the latent phase of labour. So that's the first part of labour when your body's really starting to feel those contractions and get ready for birthing your baby. So the areas that we're going to cover is the signs of latent phase, so how to recognise that. Laura's going to be covering that, and then Amy will be talking about how to cope with that at home. I'll then be bringing in some information about how your partners can support you and that all important thing, what to put in your bag to pack for birth. So to start off, we will go over to Laura.
So the start of labour is called the latent phase, as Heather just said, and this is the stage where everything really starts to kick off. So this, particularly what is happening in this stage, is your cervix starts to soften and starts to get really thin, ready to open up during the first stage of labour to allow your baby to be born. So in order for your cervix to start thinning and softening, you're going to start having tightenings. Now, these tightenings are often felt by women in the lower part of their abdomen and in the lower back. They are painful, but they're not regular at this point. They're irregular. They may happen once every hour, once every half an hour. So you'll have plenty of time in between. And Amy's going to talk about how to cope with those tightenings. As well as having the tightenings in your tummy and in your back, you're also going to maybe be experiencing something called a mucus show or a mucus plug. Now, this is where, as your cervix is opening and thinning, it's like basically snot is how I like to describe it to women, and it sits inside your cervix, and as it starts to change, it starts to fall away. Now, the colour of that show can be a little bit different between women. Some women's show can be totally clear. Others is maybe a little bit of a yellowy colour. Or sometimes women do have sort of blood streaks within the show. But what is really important at this stage of labour is to determine whether it is sort of streaky blood in the show or fresh red bleeding. So if ever you're not sure if it is the streaky blood or not, then all you need to do, you can phone the labour line and ask for some advice. We also do encourage you guys taking pictures and bringing things in with you when you're being assessed in the hospital, just so we can see exactly what was going on at home. So that's the mucus plug. And another sign of the latent phase is diarrhea and vomiting. So this is a really cool way of your body basically getting ready for baby to be born and emptying everything out. So if you're on and off the toilet, that is also very normal in the latent phase of labour. Other signs of the latent phase of labour may be just feeling particularly, some women feel a little bit anxious in the latent phase of labour. So it is really, really important to have these coping mechanisms that Amy's going to talk about to help you stay nice and calm. Now, I am just going to show you a little picture on the screen now, just to explain about the cervix, because I like to give a bit of a visual aid during the class, just so people really know what the cervix is. So as you can see here, this is your baby in your uterus here, and then you've got the cervix at the bottom. Now this cervix is the gateway to the womb, and this is the part that actually starts to soften and shorten when you're in the latent phase. So on the left, you can see it's really nice and thick still, and that will feel quite hard. And then as the latent phase progresses, it starts to really thin out, so that it's totally thin, as you can see on the right hand side there. Now that I've described some of the sort of signs of the latent phase of labour, I'll pass over to Amy so she can explain sort of how to cope with these signs.
Yeah, so the latent phase of labour can last for a varying amount of time. Some women will skip the latent phase and just go straight into established labour. Other women could be in the latent phase for 24 hours before they go into labour. But some women will experience the latent phase for days, a few days, and that's not unusual. The trick is to be able to cope with this, and the best place for you to be during the latent phase of labour is at home. We have several tricks that we can share with you. The first one I'd say would be distraction and mobilising. Again, being at home, you can wander around your garden, stick your music on, have a bath, take some paracetamol, take regular paracetamol, and really distract yourself. And your birth partner can be really helpful for that. Heather will talk about that in a bit. We also have TENS machines. TENS machines are amazing to use in the latent phase of labour, or as early as you can in labour. It just really helps to ease that pain in your back, and really is a good distraction, and you feel like you're in control of using the TENS machine, which is also quite empowering for you, because you feel like you're doing something about that pain. As Laura said earlier, the pain of the tightenings and the contractions during the latent phase are really quite sporadic. You might have a really long, painful contraction and then not have anything for another 15-20 minutes, and then have a small contraction, and then 5 minutes later have another big contraction. It's what we call they're incoordinate contractions. What your cervix needs to really start softening and thinning out is long, regular, strong contractions. And it's at that point that your cervix really starts to open and you go into established labour. So at home, it's really about getting through this early stage. I can't emphasise enough the importance of eating and drinking during the latent phase of labour. So many times I've supported women who I've said, when did you last eat and drink? And they said, oh, yesterday evening. And you think, well, you know, cars don't go without petrol in them. It's really important. Bodies are the same. Your body will not labour unless it has the fuel and the energy to do so. So I really can't emphasise that enough. It's really important to eat and drink plenty of fluids during this first stage of labour. Also, making sure that you're going to the toilet, making sure your bladder's empty, and obviously Mother Nature will do her thing if you have diarrhea and vomiting. Even more important to keep your fluids up and make sure you've got the energy you need to get yourself into labour. I've talked about the TENS machine, I've talked about the bath, I've talked about some distraction. Aromatherapy massage can be really helpful as well. Something that's nice and relaxing to try and just keep you in the zone, try to get you through those early stages. You can talk to your midwife about that, or talk to the midwives at the New Forest Birth Centre or Broadlands. We can talk to you more about aromatherapy massage, and we can give you some information for your birth partner about how to massage those oils in, and what's quite helpful. Usually the lower back is where you're going to be feeling, around the bottom of your tummy and your lower back are usually where you're feeling these pains. So with regards, Heather's going to talk to you about birth partner and what they can do to help you. If you have been in the latent phase for several hours or a couple of days and you are exhausted, because we don't underestimate the pain of the latent phase. We know that it can be extremely tiring and extremely off-putting when you think, I'm not even in labour yet. But actually your body is working so hard, and for your cervix to go from a couple of centimetres thick to being completely thin and starting to open, a lot of work has been done at home. So you mustn't underestimate how much work you're doing. Occasionally, women will have been in the latent phase for a long time and will just be exhausted. And when your body is exhausted, it will find it difficult to establish in labour, into the first stage of labour. So, of course, we would be more than happy to see you at the hospital for this consultation, because we know that sometimes you need just a little bit more to get through. And I know we said in episode 1 about pethidine, and it is definitely something that has its place. And this is exactly the place that we would suggest that we use pethidine, when you just need to have a sleep and to relax and allow your body to be able to catch up with itself. You can find more information about that in episode 1. When we do the first stage of labour, we will talk a little bit more about pethidine, but you can also find information on the internet about the use of pethidine as well. And of course, we'd look after you up on Broadlands Ward whilst you're having your pethidine. If you establish in labour, after you've had your Pethidine, which we see quite often because people can just relax and then their body says, right, okay, we can do this, and off you go. Then there we go, you're in labour, and you can either stay on Broadlands, or if you were planning a home birth, you can, once the Pethidine is worn off and you're feeling okay, then you can go back home to have your baby at home. It doesn't affect a place of birth at all. So that's a little bit about coping at home. I would like to say though that you will phone the labour line, because especially if it's your first baby, you're not really sure what's happening. Is this labour? Am I just having a bit of period pain? What is this thing that I'm feeling? Please phone the labour line, because they will advise you over the phone when they think that you need to have a midwife to come and assess you, or that you need to go in to be assessed. And please don't be put off either when they say, actually, you know, I think you're doing really well at home. We don't think that you're in established labour yet. These are the things that you can do to distract you at home. Don't be put off by that, because actually the best place for you to be is at home. You don't want to spend your latent phase in the hospital, because we don't know how long that phase lasts, and the best place for you to be is at home. Over to Laura. No, over to Heather.
Oh, okay, sorry, I thought, gosh, have I missed something there? Okay, so the thing that I'm going to start off with is partner support. I think both Amy and Laura will agree that sometimes partners are in the room with the best intentions to support, but they feel a bit of a loose end. They're not sure how best to help this person who they love very much cope with what's going on. So it's important, I think, a long time before you actually go into labour, maybe after the birth chat that you've had with the midwife, or around 34 weeks, to have this conversation with whoever your birth partner is going to be. Now, for most of you, it will be your boyfriend or your husband who's going to be there as your birth partner. But some of you, it will be your sister or your mum or your girlfriend or your wife. It's going to be whoever is your number one wingman, who will know, will support you and give you all the love and care that you need, but will also not stand for any of your nonsense, and will bring you back and earth you as well, because you really need to have that nice, clear voice, knowing I trust this person and I know they've got my back. And part of that role is what the midwife does. But of course, in some cases, that might be the first time that you're meeting that midwife. And while part of the skill, part of the art of midwifery is to build that rapport really quickly with you, when you've got that person with you that you've brought with you, you've chosen that person. Now, you've probably read the updates that at the moment we're only having one person as your birth partner, whereas previously we were saying that 2 was suitable. But in the current climate of the COVID-19, we're trying to reduce the number of people who are actually in the birth environment. It also means that that birth partner is going to be the person who can be your visitor. So there won't be anybody else able to visit you on the postnatal ward other than that person. So choose wisely, okay? When you're having this conversation, you need to make sure that you know what those person's strengths are. Are they going to be the person who is quiet and you just know that they're there? Are they going to be the person who is in charge of your playlist, who's telling you jokes, who's rubbing your back, who is worshipping you as the goddess you deserve to be worshipped whilst you are birthing a human life into the world? You need to make sure that that person they know what they need to do. That person needs to feel useful, because oftentimes when you are seeing that person distressed, so as a birth partner, if you're seeing a woman distressed, you think, how can I fix this problem? And most of the time you can't fix it. So you just need to be there supporting them with whatever they need, okay? There are other sorts of parent support and, birth partner support. And if we were in the antenatal class that I do, it is at this point that I would get you and your partner to stand up, hands on shoulders, hands on hips, and do lots of embarrassing hip movements to help with some of the moving coping mechanisms. But you are an absolute team, so you've got to stick together like glue. We will always do our best to, if things take a detour from what's expected, to make sure that your birth partner is filled in on everything. So like we said previously about if you need to be transferred in from one of your birth places, or when we talk about when birth takes a detour in one of those later videos, if emergencies happen quite unexpectedly, we will try to give them a debrief, because while midwife literally means with woman, our role is the care of the family. And that means your birth partner, whether that's a friend or a relative, doesn't matter. Okay, so partner support is really important. Like Amy said, massage with aromatherapy, like I said, jokes or reading to you, or just giving you that real kind of, you want that real, what do you call it, that hype man. That's exactly what you want in birth. You really want that hype to really encourage you through, because there will be points of labour where you think, I just can't do this anymore. And I think 9 out of 10 birth partners would gladly tap in for an hour to give you a break and then tap back out again. But as they can't do that, they need to be there giving you what you need. So if you've got any questions about like the TENS machine or the massage and things, obviously you can comment below and ask sort of specifics about that. And the team who run the Southampton Maternity Service page, they'll always do their best to get back to your questions ASAP. On the mention of comments, I'm sure there will be lots of comments on this post about what I'm going to talk about next, which is what to pack in your birth bag. There are hundreds of pages and resources out there that will encourage you to pack everything but the kitchen sink, just in case. But really, if you think about the labour rooms that we have, we're going to try and keep this to a bit of a capsule birth resource. When I speak to women at 36 weeks and talk about the different birth things that they're going to need, we focus on 3 people. So mum, obviously, we focus on baby as well, because they will need some new things, because they've just been living the life of Riley, floating around in their little water bath with their gold and silver service from your uterus. And then we'll need to talk about birth partner as well. So the things to pack as mum, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be in labour. So you will need some clothes, okay? You'll need something to wear that you're comfortable in. It doesn't matter what that is, whether if you're in the birth pool, you might want to have a bikini top on, you might want to have a crop top on or a bra, or you might think clothes are for the weak at this point and I'm just going to be naked. We don't mind what you wear at all. The important thing is that you are safe and that you are comfortable. When we talk about bikini tops, it's more because it can enable us to facilitate skin to skin with this baby as quickly as possible with you as you lift your baby up to your chest for that skin to skin. So something that's easily removable. T-shirts in the pool, they don't really work very well. They get soggy, they hang down. Your shoulders can get quite cold as well. And it's awful to lift this wet t-shirt up over your face when you've just had this beautiful baby and try and get that done. So something that you're comfortable in, and honestly, it doesn't matter what it is. You'll need something comfy to wear once you've given birth. In some cases, you might need a catheter, which is a small tube that goes into your bladder after you've given birth. So we'd encourage you to get some nightwear that's either a night dress or a long night shirt, a dressing gown, some slippers, things that you would wear. Consider it to be a lazy Sunday afternoon. You're just lounging around the ward. That's what we want you to be comfortable in, okay? And you might need a couple of changes on those clothes depending on what on how long you need to stay. The other thing is something to wear for going home. Now, the weather is beautiful at the moment, but you might want to pack a jacket or a coat just in case for yourself, okay? So that's your clothes covered. The things you need in labour, exactly as Amy said, it is so important to keep hydrated with water or squash, and to have little snacks as well. Now, of course, we are going to give you breakfast, lunch and dinner, but when you are in the midst of a contraction, you may not want the jacket potato that you ordered a few hours earlier, but you might want that bag of Haribo that you have brilliantly thought to pack a couple of days before. So lots of snacks in your bag as well, okay? So they can be sugary or salty. Keep in mind, if you do have gestational diabetes, you want to have a nice slow releasing carbohydrates. So things like cereal bars and fruits are also really good, but things that you can just literally have and forget about, things to keep your blood sugar up. Like Amy said, you know, you are going to be working very hard in labour, so you need to keep that blood sugar up. You wouldn't turn up at the London Marathon having had a Pop-Tart, so don't turn up to birth having had half a slice of toast 2 days before. Try your best to do that. And again, partner support. Sometimes it's your job to help that person remember that they need to eat and drink. When it comes to drinks, bring a sports bottle, one of those caps that you can just pull off, because you just want to slug it, get back in the game. That can be, I do recommend with women sort of isotonic drinks as well. An example of that is Lucasade Sport. It keeps you better hydrated than just water. But of course, whatever is good for you is fine. If for any reason you are on the labour ward, and you have had an IV, so a line that goes into your veins, or you're having an epidural, you will be able to drink, but you won't be able to eat when that happens. So make sure you do have that bottle, but it will need to be clear fluids, absolutely. And we'll remind you of that at the time, okay? The other things that you need to pack, of course, once you've had baby, you are going to lose a little bit of blood afterwards. Just remember your placenta has come away. If you could see that wound on your outside, you would see it's roughly the size of a sort of a small dinner plate. You'd want that wound to heal as quickly as possible. And your uterus is incredible, will continue contracting. But as it does that, it's like a bit of a sponge with the muscles, and the blood will come away. We call it lochia. And we'd like to check on it afterwards to make sure there's not too much, not too many clots and things. But you might want to bring your own maternity pads. We have got more maternity pads than you can shake a stick at, but they're this very attractive oblong shape. They don't seem to be the shape of a woman whatsoever. So you might want to bring your own. You can also get disposable knickers that people find quite useful, but it's very much up to you what you'd like to bring. If you are breastfeeding,
Can I just jump in there quickly?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, my darling. So the maternity pads, when you bring them in, try to make sure that they are proper maternity pads. They're not small scented panty liners or anything like that. They have to be maternity pads that are able to do the job.
Yes, definitely. On that note as well, when you're wearing a pad before you come in, if you think that your waters are broken, again, try to make sure it's a maternity pad, not a sanitary towel, because a sanitary towel will soak up so much more of your water and we can't necessarily assess it. So yeah, make sure that whatever you're wearing is fit for the job, definitely.
What I must say about pads is make sure you've got appropriately sized underwear for said pads to go into. Yes. Because I can tell you now, a thong is not going to cut it.
Nope.
I've been in a situation where father brought out thong. No, sir, we need big pants that come up right over your belly button that can not only hold that pad, but make you feel nice and safe and secure and comfy after you've obviously just given birth to a human being.
Definitely. Bridget Jones granny pants all the way. They are the height of fashion in birthwear. So definitely wear something that's appropriate and comfortable as well. So yeah, we've got the clothes and things that you need to wear. You might need some maternity breast pads as well. So little discs that fit in your bra, because whether you're breastfeeding or you're formula feeding, your body doesn't already know that. So you might lactate or lose some milk from your milk ducts, from your nipples, and a damp bra is not particularly comfortable, can make your nipples quite sore. On the subject of bras, now is not the time for Victoria's Secret. Now is the time for big, beige, beautiful maternity bras, so that you can unpopper them, feed your baby where you're comfortable to, and that they are supporting your breasts, which will be slightly growing, sort of around about day 2, day 3. And you're going to need something, an over-the-shoulder boulder holder is what you want. Nothing skimpy, nothing lacy, although there are some very beautiful maternity bras. You can absolutely have those, okay? So those are things that you need. Those are your fundamental things you need. But I know that other people have said bring things like a pillow. Bring it with maybe not a white pillowcase on, so we know definitely that it's yours. You might also want to bring some lip balm, because your lips can get quite chapped as well, especially if you're using the Entonox, the gas and air. You can get quite a dry mouth. Your toiletries, of course, having a shower or a bath after you've given birth can make you feel completely new and ready to kind of get on with the support for supporting and loving this new baby as well. And you might want to bring a towel. We do have towels in the unit, but they are these small baby ones. So yeah, bring some towels, maybe not ones that you're particularly fond of, because as I said, you will be losing a bit of blood once you've had this baby. So you want to make sure that they're not your guest towels, as they say. So all of the things to make you comfortable. That's your mummy bag. Babies, they don't need as much as you think, okay? They need nappies. Maybe bring 1 or 2 sizes, so the smallest size and the size up, because the E on estimated fetal weight on your scan is very much estimated. Sometimes baby can be 1 or 2 pounds either way. So make sure that you've got plenty of nappies. I would say probably about 12 nappies, because if you need more, when your partner goes home for the night, he can bring more back in if you need it. You also need clothes for baby. So a vest, which is short sleeves, short legs, normally undoes at the crotch, and needs a baby grow as well. So that's long sleeves and long legs. Some of them come with built-in booties, some of them don't. If they don't, you can bring socks, but don't worry too much about baby circulation at the moment, because it's a little bit rusty, because like we said, they're just trying to unfurl at the moment. You might want some scratch mitts too. But that, I would say, keep them if you notice that baby is scratching his or her face. because they're very tactile. When they've come out of the uterus, they're exploring all these new surfaces, all these new textures, all these new feels, and that's really amazing for them, really good sensory stimulation for them as well. So you don't necessarily need the mittens unless they start scratching at their face. You need to bring a hat too. Babies lose their heat quite quickly. They can't control their temperature very well. Newborns sweat here and nowhere else. So they can sometimes get too warm, can sometimes get too cold, which when we talk about baby care and we talk about baby baths, that's why we say not for the first sort of 24 to 48 hours. And the other thing you need to bring for baby is cotton wool, because we don't recommend that babies have their bums wiped with wet wipes, whether they're the very, very mild ones or just regular ones. Their skin's quite sensitive, so we don't want to irritate that or cause any problems or a very damp bum when you're putting those nappies on. What is ideal, you know those little disc cotton wool pads that you can get for taking your makeup off? They are top notch, because the little blobs of cotton wool sometimes come apart, so you can get fluffy bits all over baby's bum, and it's really important to make sure it's nice and dry area that you put into the nappy to make sure that they are comfy. If you are choosing to formula feed your baby, you do need to bring starter packs with you. So you don't need to bring the powder, because we don't have the facilities for you to make those feeds up and to keep the equipment sterile, but you will need to bring the starter pack. So that's the ready-made little bottles. You can get them from pretty much anywhere. It's probably cheaper to get them beforehand, because if you need to nip to a pharmacy, they're a bit more expensive. And I would say, again, you're probably going to want sort of between 6 and 12 of those if you're formula feeding. They're sterile every single time that you take them out. They're already pasteurized, so you don't need to worry about making sure that they're room temperature. They don't need to be stored. The one thing I will say about the starter packs, try to make sure it's the same brand of starter pack that you are using as formula powder that you will use at home. There's not a huge amount of difference between the formulas, but where there is a slight difference, we don't want it to cause any unnecessary tummy upsets. So if you're having Aptamil powder at home, have your Aptamil starter milk, Cow and Gate powder, Cow and Gate starter milk, etc., etc. So those are the things you need to bring for baby. Now you'd think that would be everything, but there is one last small bag that you need to bring, and this is for your birth partner. Now, birth partners, I'm speaking to you directly here. Make sure you are involved in packing your partner's birth bag, because at that moment when she needs you to get X, Y, and Z, you know where that is in the bag, and you don't have to unearth everything in her beautifully packed suitcase to find the specific pair of granny pants that she is looking for. So make sure you know where things are. But for your own bag, we would like you to bring the chargers, okay, so your phone chargers, camera chargers, a separate camera if you're bringing that, because although we'd encourage people not to go on Facebook or make phone calls or anything in those first few hours, there are going to be beautiful moments that you aren't even going to want to put on Facebook that you will capture that you will never get back. So those magic moments that are just between you three and our privilege as your midwife as well. So capture those too. You need to bring the car seat, but you don't necessarily need to bring that to the room to start off with. They're not huge rooms. So the best thing is leave the car seat in the car, come up to the birth room with mum with all your bags, and then when you guys are all ready to leave, take all the bags down to the car, bring the car seat back up, because then you only have to think about mum, baby, car seat, and yourself, and the box of chocolates that you're going to drop off in the midwife's office on the way. Okay, so the other things that you need to bring for yourself, please, please, please bring a change of clothes and a toiletries bag. It can be hard work supporting your partner. We know it's a sweaty job, we live it, we love it, but nothing beats a quick, quick festival shower, so a wet wipe shower in one of the bathrooms, and then you can just change your clothes so that you feel fresh and ready to go and to come back in to support your partner. Bring your own drinks and bring your own snacks as well, because woe betide the birth partner who steals a labouring woman's birth snacks, okay? Any other things you can think of, things like books or Kindles, you're in charge of the playlist as well, so make sure you're on the same page with what you want, whether that's Enya, Wales song, death metal, High School Musical. You guys know what you're gonna want, and you might also be put in charge of pressing the tens machine button as well. Please remember to turn it off, or there won't be a boost button when your partner needs it either. But anything else that you guys can think of, everyone who's watching, anything that you found useful when you were in labour, postnatally, or in the labouring phases itself, please put your comments down below, because something that I might not have mentioned, you might have found absolutely brilliant in labour, and then another person's going to read that and think, wow, that's a great idea, I'll pop that in my bag as well. But I think we've covered kind of the essentials there. Laura, Amy, can you think of anything I've missed out there?
I always encourage my women to pack a flannel. Can't underestimate a flannel, because obviously, as Heather just said, you're very, very sweaty in labour, and that's obviously very normal. So having a nice flannel that you can wet and cool and put it on your head is amazing in labour. People often report that having nipple cream packed in your toiletry bag is good if you're planning on breastfeeding, because we do know that sometimes your nipples can get a little bit sore. So having the nipple cream packed ready and there for you to use immediately is a really good idea as well.
I
Definitely.
always think that just something familiar from home. If you're not having a home birth and you're coming into the hospital or the birth centre, to bring, I know we've talked about pillows and they'll smell like home, but you know, a blanket, a snuggle blanket that you have on the sofa watching telly at home, or something familiar that you can just snuggle up with, I find is quite nice for just feeling relaxed and feeling familiar.
Because that's the thing, when you're in the latent phase, we encourage you to stay at home for as long as possible, but we want you to continue feeling nice and calm and comfortable with your own things around you. So yeah, please feel free to bring your own blankets and stuff, because it does make a huge difference. It may not sound like it will, but it definitely does.
Absolutely. The other thing to mention, where Amy said bringing something from home is going to be useful, and we talk about if you are at a home birth and you need to transfer in, I'd still pack those birth bags, because if you do need to transfer, you don't need to worry about getting your partner to sort of scrabble around for bits and pieces. So always have it ready. And I would say start packing from probably about 36 weeks, because although we count sort of prematurity to be finished at 36 and 6 days, and then 37 onwards, that's where we've sort of drawn the line. Just in case this baby hasn't got a calendar and decides they want to come when they want, it's probably good to have them, maybe sort of pop them in the boot of the car or keep them by the front door. The other thing that Claire Godden will absolutely smack the back of my legs for, unless I mention it, is if you have expressed some colostrum, you might not want to bring all of that in, because you don't know exactly when you're going to use it, because it's being stored in your freezer. But if you do have those syringes and you want to bring them in, make sure you bring them in a cool bag with an ice pack. And when you bring them in, let us know that you've got them so that we can store them in the freezer as well. Because once they're defrosted, they need to be used within 24 hours. But yeah, don't take that. And the very last thing, bring your notes, please. Please, please, please bring your written hospital notes with you. We've got a lot of information about your pregnancy and your birth on the computer, but we don't always have a record of exactly the conversations you're having with your community midwives. And of course, we want to have a look at your birth preferences, because we want to see how we can facilitate that as well. So please, please, please bring your hospital notes. Anything else to add, Laura or Amy?
I just always like to just really reiterate the fact that the latent phase can be tough, as Amy said. Like, it can be really tiring and exhausting, but it's so important that you're utilising all your coping mechanisms that you thought about prior to it starting, so that you're able to stay at home as long as possible, so that when you do come to see one of us in the hospital, or if we come to see you at home for your home birth, you know, you're well on your way into the first stage of labour. And as Amy said, all women's latent phases differ in length, and people often ask me, well, how long will it last? You may not have one at all. You may be in the latent phase for a couple of hours, or you could be in the latent phase for a day or so. You know, it really does differ from woman to woman. But so please just utilize the things that we've taught you from this session. Ring Labour Line and ask your midwives questions when you see them in the community, because that's what we're here for. We're here to answer your questions, to make sure that you really feel prepared for labour, and especially the start of it, because that's the bit that you are going to be doing at home on your own.
Amy, anything?
Nothing more that I can think of, no.
Lovely. What are we going to be covering in the next episode?
So next Monday, we will be covering the first stage of labour. So from established labour, which is strong, regular contractions that are causing your cervix to open, right the way through to transition, which is the stage just before you start pushing. And during that session, we will be talking a huge amount about pain relief, the different options that are available for you. I know we've touched on some of that, excuse me, but we'll go into much more detail in episode 3.
And that's on the
Fabulous.
20th of April.
20th of April.
Lovely.
Right.
Thank you very much, ladies. I will see you next time.
Take care. Bye.